Okay, welcome everyone to this series of video lectures on architectural building design with Revit architecture software. Um, in this series, we are going to be talking about how you can use Revit architecture software to design any architectural building of your choice, be it residential building, commercial building, office complexes, worship centers, what have you. Virtually any type of building can be designed with Revit architecture. And the interesting thing is that it is very, very easy to use. Very easy to use because as you are making your floor plans, automatically Revit generates the 3D instantly. So you don't have to draw your floor plan and then draw your 3D plan separately. You don't have to do that. As you are drawing your floor plan, automatically your 3D is being generated and your elevations are being generated as well. And your sections are being generated as well. That is how easy Revit is. So any beginner can learn Revit as long as you understand the principles of architecture, because it is one thing to know how to use the software. It is another thing to know how to use the software to make buildable designs, right? There are designs that are not buildable, right? If I see a design that was made by a newbie or by an amateur, I'm going to know, because it is going to be obvious that this design is not buildable. It doesn't follow the principles of architecture, right? So in this particular first video lecture, I'm going to be outlining just the basic. This is not exhaustible in any way, but in the future, probably as I update the course, I'm going to be talking about more things, or even while I'm working on the course, I'm going to be unveiling more principles of architectural design, right? So to start this course, I just want to get you prepared with basic principles of architecture. Architectural design basically involves the design of floor plans, elevations, sections, roof plans, 3D modeling. That is the realistic view of how the building would look after construction. This is basically what architectural design is all about, right? Now, before you make architectural designs, you have to understand some principles, right? Because you have to know what are the room sizes, you have to know what are the door sizes, window sizes, standard, right? It doesn't mean that that is compulsory to follow, but these are just standard that everybody knows in the industry, right? So first, let's move on to the first slide we have here. One of the principles is that your rooms, if you are designing a residential building, should have cross ventilation, right? What is cross ventilation? Cross ventilation simply means that there should be openings, either in form of windows or in form of other openings on adjacent sides of your room. A standard room is rectangular, right? So on adjacent sides of the room, you should have openings, either in form of windows or in form of any other opening. And what I mean by adjacent sides, of course, what I mean by that is at sides that are at 90 degrees to each other, right? You should have openings. Now, the second principle is that your room dimension should not be less than 3 meters, right? Standard room size is 3 meters by 3 meters. Of course, if you have enough space, you can go to 4 meters by 5 meters, 6 meters by 8 meters, as the case may be. But a standard residential room size should not be less than 3 meters in dimension. The third principle is your building area should not be more than 30% of the land area from the survey plan. What this means is that if you buy a one plot, let's say you are designing a building for a one plot of land, and let's take, for example, your one plot of land is 60 by 120, 60 feet by 120 feet, or 50 by 100 in whatever part of the country or whatever part of the continent that you are, right? Their land plot sizes vary by location, so there's no one standard plot size that is prevalent everywhere. Now, The principle states that your building area should not be more than 30% of your land area. What that simply means is if your building area is 600 square meters, then if your land area is 600 square meters, then your building area should not be more than 30% of 600 square meters. This is because so that you have enough space in the compound for parking areas, for other things as well, for ventilation as well. This is just a standard, right? Of course, it is not compulsory, but it is just advisable to follow the standard. So the next principle is that you have to allow at least 3 meters setback distance from the fence. If you are designing a building and that building is going to be in a compound and there are going to be fences, or even if they are not going to be fences, your building should be at least 3 meters away from the boundary of the land. 3 meters away from the boundary of the land. Now, if the boundary of the land there's going to be a road, right? Take for example, you have a road passing through the front of your land. Then your distance between your building from the road should be at least 6 meters, right? Take note, distance from your building to the fence or to the boundary should be 3 meters. But distance from the building to the road should be 6 meters. Right? So this is it. Now let's move on to door sizes. Standard room door size should be 900 millimeters in width and 2.1 meters in height, or 2100 millimeters in height. The toilet doors for a residential building should be 750 millimeters in width and 2100 millimeters in height. For a medium entrance door or external door, your width should be 1200 millimeters and your height should be 2100 millimeters. For a big external or entrance door, your width can be 1500 millimeters and your height should be 2100 millimeters. Right? Now, this height, you can see that the height is constant all through. The reason is simply because the standard floor height is 3 meters or 3000 millimeters. So, if your door is 2100 millimeters, it means you are going to have 900 millimeters from the top of your door to your slab or to your roof, as the case may be. Right? So 2100 is the standard height of all doors. However, the width can be varied as the case may be. Now, let's move on to windows. The standard room window size should be 1200 millimeters and the standard height can be 1500 millimeters. Now, this is not compulsory, just like I've been saying. You can have 1500 by 1500 room window. You can have 900 by 1500 room window. So it doesn't matter. It's just as per your architectural choice. Now, a toilet window. This is supposed to be for a toilet window. A toilet window should be 600 by 600. Of course, a toilet window is supposed to be smaller in size and it should have a higher seal level. Seal level simply means the distance between the bottom of the window to the base of the floor. Right? The bottom of the window to the base of the floor. That is what we call seal level. So your toilet windows can vary. It could be 900 by 900. It could be 900 by 600. It could be 600 by 900, as the case may be. So let's move on to floor height. Like I said earlier, standard floor height is 3 meters or 3000 millimeters. However, if you are designing maybe factories or church halls or mosque halls or malls or commercial areas where they are expected to be crowd, your height should be more than 3 meters. Standard height of commercial buildings, standard floor height of commercial buildings should be at least 4 meters, 4.5 meters, or 5 meters, as the case may be. But a residential building standard is 3 meters. Your ceiling height is simply the distance between your floor level to your ceiling, and that distance is usually 600 millimeters, right? 600 millimeters. Or it can be the distance between your roof, between the bottom of your roof to your ceiling level. That distance should be 600 millimeters. Now you have floor thickness or slab thickness. Standard is 150 millimeters. 150 millimeters. Now this is also not compulsory. As per the structural design, floor thickness can actually become 175 millimeters or even 200 millimeters if the slab is expected to carry a lot of load. Now let's move on to wall thickness or block work, right? We have various types of block work according to different countries and different states. We have 9 inches block work, which is equivalent to 225 millimeters. We have 6 inches block work, which is equivalent to 150 millimeters. We have 5 inches block work, which is equivalent to 125 millimeters. We have 4 inches block work, which is equivalent to 100 millimeters. I think this is the least block work that is available in the market. 4 inches block work. Now for staircase details, your riser simply means the height of each step of your staircase, and that is usually 150 millimeters. Your tread simply means the width of each step of your staircase, and that is usually 250 millimeters for residential buildings and 300 millimeters for commercial buildings. Now your landing simply means the difference or the place where that separates your first flight from your second flight. You know, the common staircases we have are usually called dog leg staircase, and these are the type of staircase that have 2 flights. You have the first flight, you have your landing, and then you have your second flight to the next level, right? So that particular landing is what should be 1,200 millimeters in width or 1,500 millimeters in width. The flight width simply means the width of each flight, right, of your staircase, and that could be 1 meter or 1.5 meter or 1,000 millimeters to 1,500 millimeters. So it can be 1,200 millimeters, it can be 1,300 millimeters, depending on the space that you have, right? So these are all the architectural principles that I'm going to be talking about in this particular video lecture. Like I said earlier, it is not exhaustible. There are a lot more standards that you continue to know as you continue to progress in your design knowledge, right? So I'm going to stop this video for you, and in the next video we're going to jump right in to the Revit software, and we're going to start our design, first of all by understanding how the Revit interface works, and then we proceed to designing a building by ourselves. Thank you very much, and I'm going to see you in the next video.